Welcome to another episode of the Hat Collecting Talk Show, where we talk about the many metaphorical hats that we all wear in our lives, because no one does just one thing and everyone has a story. You can find this show online at hatcollecting.com. And I am your host, Lacey Artemis, a creative Jill of all trades, and you can find me online as Artemis Creates. Today, I am joined by a friend, Devina Persaud. Devina
Hi.
is yes, Devina is a digital marketer, a dedicated stair climber, an avid reader, and a former improviser, which I also am, which is how we know each other.
Mhm.
Devina's pronouns are she and her for the listeners. How are you doing today, Devina?
I'm doing wonderful, Lacey. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Absolutely, you've always been a delight. So I was very much looking forward to it. Yeah, I'm just gonna kind of give up the ghost right from the start here. Devina and I met in an improv class like 2 or 3 years ago, and she made a very strong impression on me. So I've kept in touch over the years, and when I started doing this, like Devina would be a great person to talk to. So I'm just as excited to have you here as you are to be on, I guess.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I guess we can take a few minutes to kind of talk about that, because that's kind of the thing that kind of linked us together. You Do you want to tell the listeners and the viewers what compelled you, what made you want to take improv classes?
Yeah, for sure. So originally, I had very bad anxiety and depression, especially social anxiety. So for me, it's been always really hard to actually make friends, carry conversations, and just go out of my way to have those social interactions. And I was trying to figure out a way how best I can integrate any social interactions naturally. And I actually came across improv for anxiety at Second City. So I started from there and I worked my way up until level D, where I actually met Lacey.
Yeah, and similar for not quite the same. Like
Mhm.
I see. I don't really feel like I've had like social awkwardness, and I guess I felt anxious at times, but I don't really feel like I've like suffered from anxiety the way that I've heard a lot of people describe it.
Mhm.
But for me, it was more like I was looking to challenge myself, because I've been very growth oriented for much of my
Good.
adult life. And the interesting thing about improv actually is that when I took the very first improv class that I took, it was at the absolute very like first step beginning of when I was transitioning, and I wasn't even on hormones yet at that time. And so I'd had a few classes to kind of get into it, and then I met Devina in my final of four courses that I took, and by that point I was much more like confident and comfortable, and
Mhm.
had a really great time. You said to me off air that you wanted to get back into it. Do you have, obviously the pandemic has kind of
Mhm.
put that on hold, but are you planning to do that like as soon as it's possible again?
So honestly, as soon as it's possible, I'm signing up. Was such a great experience. The
Hmm.
fact that you get to meet new people in a space that I've never felt judged. It's just a bunch of people who are as awkward as you, coming together, working as a team in order to create something really beautiful. So it's a community that I continue to want to be a part of.
Yeah, definitely. And again, to kind of reiterate, I guess, like the first class that I went to, I was still very finding my own self in a big way. And I remember going to the first class and being like, I know the Second City, because I asked them beforehand, well, I'm going to start using the different bathroom than I used to use. And I wanted to make sure that that was like all going to be okay, and they'd be supportive, and they were. So when I got into the class, and nobody gave me any trouble, and nobody was like giving me funny looks really, and I felt that that just really helped to alleviate a lot of my nervousness. And I was just like, yeah, I'm okay here, and I can be myself, and I can bloom. And like that was a huge part of me. And like again, I've done something like this before, so it's not like improv allowed me to interview people, but it definitely kind of woke up even more of my potential, I guess. But yeah, do you want to tell us just I guess in
Mhm.
general terms, like what you do, digital marketing, what kind of things do you do for that?
So I work in paid social media. So my job is actually I get a brief from a client and I actually set up ads and I'm able to target people based on whatever the brief mentions. It's great because you get to see what's working, what's not working. how to actually grow your audience and see how exactly people respond to your ads.
That's great. Yeah, I might have to if you have any spare capacity, I might have to see if you'd like to do some of that on the side for me. Because I have some things I could use help promoting.
Always happy to help.
Yeah, and you were telling me in the pre-show lobby that you've been practicing stair climbing and towards a goal. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, for sure. So everyone knows during COVID, all the gyms were closed. Usually before COVID, I would go to the gym maybe 3 to 5 times a week, and I would run, I'd lift weights. And for me, it's just to get the endorphins up. Like it's not really for a goal. And then COVID closed down all the gyms. So I'm very lucky that I live in a condo. And I was like, okay, let me just try stair climbing. I've heard some really great benefits. And I started off really slow, first 10 flights a day. And then I made it up to 61 flights. The goal is actually to climb 101 flights because that's the amount the CN Tower actually has. So I'm working at it. I've been doing this for maybe since March. So yeah, here's hoping that I continue doing it, keep growing. I've noticed that I don't get winded so easily, so it's been good.
That's really cool. That's something, admittedly, that like I have another friend who's done the CN Tower stair climb at least once, maybe even twice, and it's something like I want to try, but like you definitely can't just do that without any preparation. But I do enjoy being active, so whenever I can, it's always something that I look forward to. So maybe I can't join you on your stair climb, but you know, maybe sometime we can do something active together.
Definitely. Like I feel during COVID, it's good to actually just get out and walk, just to see people and just enjoy. Just fresh air does help mentally, physically, and spiritually. So
Absolutely. Something I'm doing now is a new thing with guests. Usually if they're not also from Toronto, or not from Toronto, but living in Toronto currently. You had something to say about like kind of misconceptions about where you kind of grew up, and I want to give you a chance to tell that to the audience for real.
So growing up, I actually moved around a lot. So I always said the longest place I've ever lived in is Montreal. So it's technically a suburb, maybe a half an hour away from the city of Montreal, called Ile Perrot. It was it wasn't a very diverse community. So it was just a lot of Quebecois. And I grew up there for about 7 years until I actually came back to Toronto, or Scarborough, and decided to go to York. So some misconceptions about Scarborough is the fact that it's dirty and there's a lot of poverty in Scarborough, but it has been up and coming. I find you can find poverty in everywhere in Toronto, everywhere you go. It's not just generalized to one specific area.
Absolutely, and I'm from Oshawa originally, and
Oh,
it's the same thing there.
yeah.
I just remembered that I totally forgot to do the land acknowledgement, but since we're still talking about, places, so Toronto, or Tekaronto, is a dish with one spoon territory. It's the dish with one spoon treaty established between the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation, the Huron-Wendat, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. You can find out more about that and where you live at native-land.ca. And even though it's a .ca, it's not only for Canada. It actually covers like the whole world. And as one of my previous guests said, that's not the place to end. That's just the place to get started in the learning and kind of keep going from there. But yeah, we want to recognize and acknowledge that we are visitors on unceded land here. And so with that, we are going to officially get into the questioning for the episode, as the listeners are now familiar, or will be familiar. So we already kind of covered sort of what you do and how you got into it. So when you were younger, when you were a child, do you remember what you wanted to be or to do when you grew up?
So I wanted to be a Bollywood superstar. Like, I'm not even kidding. That's what I really wanted to be. But there were a couple problems to that. So number one, both my parents are Guyanese. So that's a country in South America. It's a country of immigrants. English is our first language. So, as you know, in Bollywood movies, they speak in Hindi or Urdu. And unfortunately, I had no training in that. Number two, it's kind of hard to learn Hindi, so never did that. And number three is I'm very clumsy. That's the simplest way to put it. So I'm not a good dancer. I'm not a good singer. Improv, I'm pretty good at that. But other than that, I'm not, I can't be a Bollywood superstar, even if I tried.
Did you have like a runner-up idea?
Um, so growing up, I often told my parents like that's what I wanted to do, and my parents were not that thrilled that that's what I wanted to do. So the next step was a doctor. So Bollywood superstar or doctor?
That's a great one A, one B.
Yeah, it's like a 360.
So I'm realizing that again, I kind of forgot something in the first question. So I wanted to ask, this is something I used to ask on my old show, and it's something I like because insights can result from it. But can you think of like sort of in line with the like stereotypes or misconceptions about where you kind of grew up in regards to your job, like your actual job? Would you say that there are any like specific misconceptions that you're aware of for like digital marketing and that you would like? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So generally when I tell people I work in social media, they usually respond one of two ways. The first would be, oh my God, I can do that. And I'd say, okay, try it. It's a very good job opportunity. And number two would be like, can you make money from that? Anybody can do social media. And technically, the market's very saturated in people who think they can do social media, but it's just people don't realize it's a lot of numbers and Excel spreadsheets. So to actually, it's like working social media, you have to deep dive into that information. You have to have the skills to understand what that information is telling you and how to best react. So although it seems really fun and very easy, it's just there's a lot of work that goes into it. So even before I was doing data-driven social media marketing and doing organic social, um, that means pretty much like content creation. No one understands how much work goes into actually taking one single photo, how much editing, how much thinking, how long it takes to plan a feed. So I guess the general conception is that it's super easy, but it's not.
No, absolutely. Yeah, like I can relate to that a little bit because my day job is mainly kind of like bookkeeping, and a lot of people think bookkeeping is just sorting receipts, and that is part of it, but that is not all of it. And so there's a lot of jobs that people think are easy, and they actually aren't. There's a lot more than you think. So thanks for that insight. So again, sort of leapfrogging back over the what you want to be as a kid thing, which I always find interesting because like, well, did people actually end up getting into or somewhat near what they were thinking, or are they doing something entirely different? I'm still trying to figure out how I want to work this next question, this cultural idea, this common idea that, you know, we're supposed to have our lives figured out by the time we turn 30. And for a lot of people, that's not true. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, I used to ask, like, so where were you at by the age of 30? And then I'm like, but maybe the more interesting thing is, at what age did you get into the groove of like what you're doing or what you think you want to do, and kind of see what the gap is there. So I don't know how you would like to approach that particular question.
So even though I wanted to be a Bollywood superstar when I was when I was about 16, I really wanted to work in fashion. So I have a degree in fashion marketing, and from there I jumped to communications. I worked up in fashion up until I guess a month ago. So in terms of working fashion, that meant just digital marketing. So I'm really good at marketing apparel and lifestyle brands. And I was originally working with a fragrance company, marketing their product. And then I moved over to something in finance. And it's been super different, but really enjoyable. And I realized that I really like working in social media. So that's the focus. I
Yeah,
don't know if that makes sense.
no, totally, because it again reminded me, like in bookkeeping, that's another thing that I had the potential to get a lot of different experiences because like every company needs someone to do bookkeeping and accounting. So I could theoretically do it for a construction company, I could do it for a circus company. Like there's so much possibilities, and like I didn't end up having that much variety in my kind of like day job, but there was the potential there. And so instead I've kind of done a lot of my like I've satisfied my curiosity through independent learning and study, I guess.
The best way to describe it, it's like a tree. So originally I knew I want to work in fashion and I want to be a buyer, but realized buying was really boring. And then within fashion, there was marketing, and I loved marketing. And there was the birth of social media, and I loved social media. So I combined the two. And then I continued to grow until I ended up where I am at. And now I'm just very focused on social media. Yeah, so it's just growth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Long story short, I ended up exactly where I wanted to end up, and I'm very thankful for that.
That is always great when that happens. It obviously doesn't happen for everyone. And again, this show, like I've said it so many times now, but like this is kind of not only the culmination of, but the spiritual successor to past projects of mine. And just the fact that I kept being like, you know what, I miss interviewing people. I really enjoyed that. I want to do it again. And then this particular like theme and concept and just the way that it's being executed, it's just like everything just kind of, the pieces just fell really beautifully into place, and I'm very grateful for it. And of course, having people willing to come on and talk to me is also great. And so another question, I'm kind of testing it. I'm not sure if this one's going to stick in the show. So in general, would you say that you kind of feel like on par with your peers or people your age, or maybe you feel a little bit ahead or maybe a little behind?
So I'm 28, and I feel pretty on par with my peers. I have friends my best friend actually, she bought a house. She's a lot younger than myself. And for her, I see her, she's just striving, she's doing the best that she can. And then I have other friends who are just trying to figuring out at the same time. So I guess I would say I'm in the happy middle.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to have a different experience. And since I started asking this, I am getting a range of like kind of for myself, I'm in my like now in, in my, on the latter half of my mid 30s. And like it kind of depends on who I'm around. Really, a lot of my peers are anywhere from like 2 to 10 years younger than me. And I don't feel that much older than them. So, take that for whatever you will. But so actually this next question is probably pretty perfect for us. It's a new one that I'm testing out for the first time. So buckle up.
Okay.
So there's this other idea. I'm really interested in these different, like, kind of widely accepted cultural ideas of the way that we're supposed to behave or the way that things are supposed to go. And so adults are generally like, we're supposed to be like grown up and mature, and we're supposed to behave, and we're not supposed to be silly, and we're not supposed to goof around and be really playful and things. But like, that's an essential part of the human experience. And so I want to ask you, what is the last silly or playful thing that you did on purpose?
Oh my goodness. So I'm actually a very silly person. I think that's kind of hard to say. I want to say that I sent a meme to a friend, maybe something like that, or sometimes I FaceTime my brother, and then I run like across my apartment back and forth, and I say, "I have zoomies. I have zoomies." I'm so excited to be talking to you, zoomies, and then he would do the same thing. So, and then he has his girlfriend watching him, being like, "Oh, okay."
That's adorable.
Yeah, we do like things like that, and that's just very regular.
Oh my goodness. I love that answer.
Zoomies.
Oh my goodness. That is so perfect.
Yeah.
See, I knew that this would be like the best time to preview this question. I'm so glad I thought of it.
Yeah.
And I guess kind of switching tracks a little bit. So as I kind of phrase this one with people, like we've all had our lives disrupted in some way, shape, or form because of the pandemic. Some of us have maybe had it more disrupted than other people. But I think also for a lot of us, there's still been some like silver linings or positives that have kind of resulted. And so what's this thing that like a positive thing or silver lining that specifically resulted in your life because of the pandemic?
So it sounds really terrible, but I'm very grateful for the pandemic because I've been able to reevaluate my life. So that meant like slowing down, understanding the things that actually matter to me. And I've actually have concrete goals. So a lot of those goals were financial in terms of like paying off my debt, paying off student loans, saving up for a down payment on a house. So that's one part. The second is understanding my role in my community and what I can do to actually make a difference. And I think the third thing was trying to be healthier. So I have a very terrible habit of eating out, eating greasy foods, ice cream's my favorite, but now it's slowing down, making meals, wholesome meals with vegetables and fruits and grains, and taking the time to eat it instead of eating it very quickly at my desk. So it's just been a mind, body, and spirit 360 for me during this pandemic.
That is really great. Yeah, I can absolutely relate to well, most of that. I forget what the first thing that you said was, but yeah, no, like the food thing especially, because that's been like I was having some like health issues at the very end of last year, and long story short, the doctor said to me like you basically should stop eating fried food and fast food like completely, and it's something I'd been wanting to do anyways, and that was finally the impetus that really pushed me. And as a result, like I've converted my diet to like almost entirely plant-based, which
Awesome.
I'm yeah, it's just been because like I'm a super picky eater and I've just always really struggled with food. And so I'm really proud of myself, and I'm still kind of struggling, but
So I don't know if you had this experience, but when so I'm a pescatarian, so meaning that on occasion, maybe once a month, I have fish and eggs, and I'm dairy free. And ever since I made that switch, when I get sick, I don't get sick as terribly. So I'm not sure if you experience the same thing. Like I no longer sneeze or cough. It's just malaise if I do, and it's maybe once a year.
Yeah, I've had a similar experience. I eat fish and eggs more than once a month, but I mean those are pretty much the only two like non-plant based things that I still eat.
It's hard.
Yeah, I mean I thought it was. It's funny because like my roommate got me into like fermented foods and kombucha and stuff like that, and there's certain things, and even almond milk. Like the very first time I tried it, it was like hard for me because like trying new things is very difficult for me, even if I want to. And so like I remember the first time I had kombucha, I was like literally taking tiny sips of it because it was like so like
it's different.
Strong. And then like now I'm just like I can just like drink it like no problem. And so it's kind of funny, and that just shows me like there's if you really kind of push yourself and you're really dedicated to it, you can make these changes. And like I've kind of always had like not always, but for a couple of years now I've had like fluctuating health, and like I said, this it has made me feel better. But yeah, it was kind of like usually when I get sick, what it seems to be is like it'll hit me really hard, really suddenly, but it'll be gone within like 2 days. Like it's normal for people to get sick and be sick for like a week or two. And
yeah, that's me.
Okay, where was I in the questions here? The next question here I'm going to go into is a one that I think is really great on this show. Definitely a keeper. What is the last new thing that you learned, whether it was like a piece of information, like a fact or a skill or something like that? And what is something new that you like, something you would like to learn or try, not necessarily like right now, but like, at some point?
Oh, okay. So my last fact that I learned was apparently human beings need 8 hugs a day in order for growth. Yeah. So
where did you learn that?
On the internet.
Okay. Good old internet.
Yeah. So apparently, like I always make this joke, if you see a shorter person, it's because they didn't get enough hugs growing up. My best friend, she's like 4'9", and I always tell her that.
Man,
so, she just didn't get enough hugs. Yeah.
Oh, that's adorable. Have you learned any like new skills or anything recently?
Honestly, nothing in terms of life. So in terms of digital marketing, I've learned how to like advertise on Twitter, learned how to advertise on Amazon, which is pretty cool, and Snapchat. Um, and the thing is, I've learned a few tricks of the trade and how to have the most epic TikTok. So yeah, I think in terms of my career, I've learned a bunch of things for that.
And so what's something else new that you would like to learn, whether it's information or a new skill?
For me, I think it's just how to find your inner calmness. I think that like it's not necessarily a skill, but it's something that I'm constantly every single day trying to do.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean that's something that I think is a worthy goal for anyone to really kind of strive towards, and that's something that I've talked a little bit with about some past guests of like how was it? Yeah, one of my past guests was saying how backpacking is kind of like a meditative type experience, and I was like, yeah, that's like for me with biking. Like when I go out on my bike, it's like this kind of reset for me, and I appreciate being able to do it.
So with me, I guess the major thing that I'm trying to do is learning how to be more vulnerable. So I know everything that humans struggles with vulnerability. It's really uncomfortable, but I'm just trying to learn how to ease into that. So I read this amazing book by Brene Brown called Daring Greatly. Amazing author, amazing human being. So it's just pretty much trying to not doubt yourself. And if you do doubt yourself, it's okay. Like you're human, you make mistakes. And I'm trying to like accept that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's like I know of her originally from like I think a TED talk that she did that kind of
Yeah.
blew up, and then she's just kind of built on that from there. And this is another sort of slightly more newish question, but I'm liking the results that we're getting from it. So, what would you say? And you can take a second to think about it if you need to. But what would you say are your two most dissimilar hats? And hats being either interests or skills.
Ooh. On one hand, I want to say, I guess my skills, like there's me as a digital marketer, and then there's me on the other hand being the ideal like daughter, a sister, just a person overall. I don't know if that works.
And how do you like? I'm not trying to dispute that, but like how do you think of those as being like really dissimilar?
Well, I guess in terms of working, you have this idea of just being very static, not emotional, just being very powerful. Whereas when you're thinking of yourself as in a relationship, whether that be being a mother, a sister, a daughter, you have to become more empathetic. You're thinking about other people's needs rather than your own.
That's fair. Yeah, again, like there's no wrong answers here. It's just like sometimes I might be like, hey, elaborate.
Yeah.
But like not a wrong answer, just a little more detail. I appreciate that, and I think that you have a point on based on your experiences for sure. Would you say that you have like a peak time of day, like morning or evening or somewhere in between?
Definitely at night. So I do my best work between the times of 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. Yeah, I'm a night owl. I'd rather like work all night and then sleep in.
That's what I'm more familiar with for most people, and I think the majority of people I've interviewed have been more night people. And it's kind of funny. I joked with my last guest, was a fellow morning person like me, and we kind of joked like, we always know where to find the night people, but how do you find morning people? Because they don't really like hang out socially so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's just because it kind of comes back to this idea. Like, there's two parts to it, really. It's like I've heard people say that like, night owls are naturally more creative, and I dispute that. And also the like kind of idea with like famous artists or famous personalities and like what their like kind of schedule was like, and kind of how we compare. So just I'm curious to see how like modern day people, because a lot of us do have like these 9 to 5 jobs, and so like how do we kind of naturally fall outside of that? So yeah, that's why I asked that question. The last few questions here are a little bit more on the serious side. So have you dealt with any disabilities or mental health struggles in your life, and how have you worked through them?
I feel like every human being goes through some sort of mental struggle.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's just always a constant battle. I suffer a lot with imposter syndrome, so I never think what I'm doing is good enough. I'm always second guessing myself, and that often takes a toll in terms of my work or my relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Only recently I've figured out that I have to read enough, and actually I started seeing a therapist, and she's helped me navigate a lot of my struggles. If you're thinking about doing something like that, I always suggest going forward. Yeah,
I can also vouch for therapy.
I
I've
love a good therapist. So
Yeah, and I will say that finding the right therapist is absolutely crucial. Like
yeah,
just going to any old therapist, it might help a little, but like if you get the wrong therapist, it actually can be worse. Because
yeah,
I've heard stories of like therapists actually like basically gaslighting people and saying like, no, what you think is wrong. Like this isn't what you're, and that's terrible. You want them to
yeah.
actually listen to you and hear you out and like empathize and give you like relevant feedback. So that's actually I recently switched therapists because not because the one that I was seeing was bad, but just
Mhm,
I have like I'm not the wokest person ever, but like I certainly try to be aware and I'm trying to learn and improve. And
mhm,
the therapist that I had been seeing, who I did like, I found that I was having to kind of explain a lot of things, a lot more things than I felt I should have been, like, just to
mhm.
give context to why something was kind of troubling me. And I was like, okay, this is kind of not the best thing. Like I would be better served to have someone I don't have to explain this context to. They
Yeah,
already get it. So just switched to somebody new who has like a lot more in common with me, and so that has been helpful for sure. But yeah, no, you're right. Everyone, I think that is a misconception as well. That like people think like, oh, like mental health is like this like more rare thing. It's not. But I think like, well, every person does actually have a mental health. It can just be in varying states
mhm,
of function. Um, so yeah, and like I think you were saying in the pre-show lobby that the improv was also to kind of help you with your anxiety and stuff as
yeah.
well.
Uh,
Yeah.
like definitely, like reaching out to people, having just improv gave me that confidence that I needed in terms of dealing with my anxiety, being able to have a conversation with somebody that I didn't know that well. So improv definitely helped with that. Like if Lacey, if you had approached me maybe 2 years ago and asked me to do something like that, I probably would have said no because I've been so shy. But yeah, therapy and improv definitely played a huge part in alleviating a lot of my mental stress.
That is really good to hear. And yeah, like I said, for me, it definitely helped me to. I think it kind of like fast tracked my evolution into my new self.
Mhm,
So I'm thankful for that. So I guess kind of a fitting way to kind of to start coming into the home stretch here.
mhm.
Um, Again, this is another question. I'm not quite sure what the best way to kind of frame it is, but kind of like to ask the guests for like advice that they would give. And it kind of started as like, what advice would you give to someone who just feels really lost and doesn't know what to
Mhm.
do? And then it's like, but I've also heard that question of like, what advice would you give to your teenage self? And I don't know which one is better to ask. So I guess maybe I'll kind of leave it up to you, what you think you'd like to answer.
So generally, for me, I guess the best advice that I need right now and what I want to give is like life tends to give you exactly what you want, like, but it might just take some time. So it's just based on waiting and timing. So if you really want something, if you really want that job or you really want that relationship or something else, even though you might want it right now, it might not be the right time. And when you do get it, you'll appreciate it so much more.
As they say, good things come to those who wait.
Yeah, that's it.
And sometimes too, like it's kind of said that like sometimes you're just not ready. Like something might come around, but you're not ready for it at that
Yeah.
moment. And then like the next time it comes around, maybe you are ready then. Yeah, and as I guess if you could say something to your teenage self, what might that be?
I guess it's not to worry about what's going to happen in the future because everything tends to pan out.
As I kind of warned you or gave you heads
Mhm.
up on, I'm going to give you the opportunity to ask me something if you would like to.
Oh man, I don't know what to ask you, Lacey. I'm so sorry. I just
Okay.
think that you and I are having such a great conversation right now. Whatever pops up naturally pops up.
Yeah, it's just I guess because I felt like, you know what, I'm kind of putting people on the spot with this, and I figured it's fair to give them a shot to get one back.
Yeah.
I guess I was gonna say, or one option is if any of these particular questions, if you'd like to, I mean, I've kind of been offering a bit of my own answers to them anyways, but yeah, so I guess for future guests who might be watching this and preparing to come on, if there's something that you might want to ask me, I will give you that opportunity now that I've thought of it. Yeah, so the last sort of, not even really a question, but just kind of, again, giving you like a bit of a platform here. Are there any specific causes or charities that you'd like to raise awareness of or promote?
360 Kids. Yes, that is correct. A friend of mine used to actually work for this company, and what it does, it's for homeless youth. So generally, they're always looking for donations, and it's a really great cause. Hi, I'm so sorry. So generally, this thing we started as a family is when one of us comes home, we go whoop at owls, and we try to find each other. And because owls can't see in the light, so we just walk towards each other. So my dad maybe might be in his room, and he'd go whoo, and I would go whoo, and then we just kind of walk and laugh.
You have so many adorable little things. I love it.
Yeah, so I wasn't laughing at your amazing causes before. I was just laughing at him because I was hearing him call me, and he was letting me know that he's home.
That's okay. Yeah, I will just I'll just reiterate that one, and I can trim it out. So yeah, just kind of the main thing, I guess. Like it's right on the screen because I feel like it's a really important present thing. All the time, I want people to be aware of it and be thinking about it. But Black Lives Matter has its own dedicated little button on our screen for the listeners who don't watch it or can't watch it. That's there. So. And of course, as I said on the website and at the end of the video portion of the show, I have a dedicated, like a whole section there. So, I mean, there's so many great causes out there that can use help and can use volunteers. And yeah, I want to try to help in some way. So that's kind of a way that I'm doing it with this. But yeah, so to kind of round things out here now, if people want to like follow you on social media or like kind of find out what you're up to, where do you feel comfortable with them doing that?
I don't think I'm that interesting, but if anybody wants to follow me, my IG is hi_dev_.
And you see, you don't do Twitter or anything else like that? Just
No.
Instagram? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. Yeah, it's something. Yeah, I would not be on as many platforms as I am if I didn't have to. I feel like to, actually promote the show and other things that I do, it's kind of necessary. So as for me, as you probably might already know, I'm Artemis Creates on social media, artemiscreates.com. I'm on Spotify, Spotify and iTunes and stuff with this podcast. I also have my own music that I wrote up there, including the theme song for this show. And I have a merch site, which is actually designs that I made, not like stuff of my own, like logo and name and things, but like actual designs that I've made that you can get on like shirts and mugs and phone cases and everything. And that is artemismerch.com. And yeah, and of course, this is why my show notes have a million things on them, because there's so many things for me to remember to say. So if you enjoy the show, if you're listening to the podcast, if you can go and like rate it and leave a review, that would be amazing. I would appreciate that. It helps people find it. If you are watching it on YouTube, like and subscribe, leave a comment. And of course, we do. You're available for a few minutes more for the bonus episode. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
let's do
excellent.
it.
Okay, great. So yeah, we do a bonus episode with each guest, provided they are available, and that comes out on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/ArtemisCreates.
So
yeah, and what else have we got here? Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Like and subscribe and leave reviews. And you can go to ko-fi.com/ArtemisCreates, and that's another site where you can just like leave tips, basically. So you don't get any like special content from it, but if you just want to like throw me a couple of bucks, then that's the way you can do it. And of course, buying the merch and buying the music and all that if you want. But enough about me. We're going to get to the part that I think everyone's probably excited and waiting for, the little ending tradition that we do here.
Ooh,
Yes.
I'm ready. I have it.
So, I was going to do because we're both sort of wearing green. And so I was going to do a green hat, but then Devina, excuse me, reminded me this episode is coming out so it's pretty close to Halloween. So I picked out a more Halloween appropriate hat to put on. I'm going to have to take off my headphones though to put it on, but then I'll put them back on so I can still hear you. So you can get yours ready and then.
Oh, wait.
Okay, so hold on a sec. Okay, hold on a second. So I don't know if I can actually.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, hold on a second.
I'm going to do mine.
Okay, yeah, my headphones are not going to fit on properly, but hold on. There we go. So as the listeners will be able to hear, they won't be able to see it, but I'm wearing a jester hat with little bells on it. I don't know how that's going to sound in the recording. It might be bothersome to your ears, but hopefully not. No, you can't really see it. It's got this really deep, dark, reddish purple shade on it as well. And Devina is wearing a black kind of a hat.
Fedora.
Fedora. Or something like that.
So this is so years ago I did a exchange in France and I ended up in Amsterdam. So this is the only thing I actually got in Amsterdam was this black hat. And I thought I was the coolest person ever, but just wore it during France, but never again.
Yeah, the great thing I love about this part of the show is that I grabbed a screenshot of both of us wearing our hats. And so I think this is a very funny combination. Because yours looks great and mine just looks totally silly.
I wish I had a silly hat though. I love silly hats.
Well, I mean, if you know what, there's maybe when COVID's over, I wouldn't mind doing maybe a little panel or something, and then we can all wear silly hats. That would be really fun.
I would love that.
I have a lot of plans for this show that if there was not a pandemic, I could be expanding it and doing a lot of different things, but I'm still working on figuring out how that's going to happen, but I definitely want to do it. So stay tuned for that. And the people on Patreon, I might just give away some secrets about what that's going to be. So your support will potentially even help that happen sooner. So thank you for watching and listening Hat Collecting. I hope that you learned something. And follow Devina on Instagram. Follow me online if you want. And with that said, we're going to get ready to do the bonus episode, and we're going to wave goodbye to my lovely audience. Thank you again for being on, Devina.
Thanks.
And see you on the bonus episode in a few.
Yeah.